In a recent interview on DAZN, Canelo Alvarez was asked who he would prefer to face out of Gennady Golovkin and Jamal Charlo. And he said Charlo. And I can't hate on that. Because although he did have those two very competitive fights with Golovkin, very close fights, and there's a lot of people that would like to see them settle their differences with a third match. And I don't hate a third match between the two of them. But I feel like Canelo has bigger fish to fry at the moment in terms of legacy fights. Because he's trying to become undisputed at 168. He's talking about Artur Beterbiev at 175. And if he was to come back down to, well, he's never coming back down to 160. He's made that clear. So let's say at 168, if one of those guys was to step up, either Charlo or Golovkin, I'd prefer it to be Charlo that he fight first. Unless Charlo ends up losing or something happens, I prefer him fight Charlo first rather than fight Golovkin at 168. At the end of the day, Golovkin, after the second Canelo fight, he's been relatively inactive. So the Canelo rematch was in 2018. He then fought Steve Rose, which was a gimme fight, in 2019. Later on in 2019, he fought Derevenchenko and he looked very, very shaky in that fight. Then he fought Zerameta in 2020. So he's been very inactive, really and truly. And at 39 years of age, is Gennady Golovkin going to get any better from here on in? I suspect not. And one of the problems with Golovkin is that he's not like, let's say, a Klitschko, who, although Klitschko was stopped several times, for the most part, he didn't take a lot of punishment in his fights. Whereas Golovkin has taken a lot of punishment. Yeah, he took a lot of punishment against Derevenchenko, even against opponents who he manages to dominate, he still ends up taking a lot of shots. So he took a lot of punishment against Derevenchenko, obviously took his fair share of punishment in the two Canelo Alvarez fights, didn't really take much against Martirosyan, took plenty of punishment against Danny Jacobs, took punishment against Kell Brook, didn't really take anything against... He took a fair amount of shots in the Willie Monroe fight. Not sure how many of you remember that fight, but there was one point where Golovkin just stood there and Monroe was teeing off on him. And some people say that Golovkin was allowing Monroe to hit him. I'm not so sure about that. I think Golovkin has a tendency to, I guess, freeze when he's under heavy fire. Yes, he believes in his chin and he does have a tremendous chin, Gennady Golovkin. There's no doubt about it. He's got an iron jaw. And perhaps if he didn't have such an iron jaw, he wouldn't freeze and he would move out the way and whatever. But the thing about Golovkin is he is quite slow-handed and he prefers to let you get your shots off, even if you're landed on him, so he can punch in between your shots, or he can wait until you finish throwing and then he's going to pounce on you. Usually it's the latter, actually, especially if he's fighting a guy who's got much quicker hands than himself. He'll just let you throw. So the point I'm making anyway is that Golovkin has taken his fair share of punishment over the years. I mean, even if you go back to, where's the fight now? Kasim Umar, back in 2011, took his fair share of punishment in that fight. So look, I'm not saying he's the most shot-worn 39-year-old fighter out there. And here's the difference as well. Another difference with Klitschko. The fights where Klitschko did take punishment were when he was younger. Once he got into his 30s, the last loss before his 10-year reign as heavyweight champion was against Lamont Brewster. After that, from that point on, Klitschko really wasn't taking any punishment. So by the time he got to his late 30s when he fought Tyson Fury, he hadn't taken any punishment in many, many years in a professional ring. Whereas Gennady Golovkin, it was only 2019 that he had that real tough fight against Derevenchenko where at moments it looked like Golovkin was going to go down for the first time in his career. He was hurt to the body on numerous occasions, took loads of headshots. So, yeah, look, I'm not writing Golovkin off as a top-level fighter whatsoever. At the end of the day, he still holds a version of the world middleweight title, the IBF. We don't count the IBO. And for me, he looked better against Zerameta than Munguia did. So I'm certainly not writing him off or anything like that. But I would prefer Canelo, who is in his prime right now, to face other guys in their primes. And that would include the likes of Charlo or other guys who are undefeated. And that would include the likes of Artur Beterbiev, who's not only undefeated, but also a huge light heavyweight. And that would be a tremendous feat if Canelo Alvarez was able to go up to that division again, because he's already fought Kovalev, obviously. Go up there, fight and beat Beterbiev. That would be just a tremendous feat. And then drop back down to 168 and take on Charlo. What a resume this guy is trying to build here. So, for me, I don't have an issue with Golovkin. If he's really going to fight guys like that, like Beterbiev, you can't really grumble at him telling Golovkin to take a back seat or go to the back of the line and wait his turn. You can't grumble. You can't. Because the people he will be fighting instead are absolutely top notch. And obviously he's got to get past Plant first. And upsets do happen in boxing. But if he gets past Plant, let's see where he goes. It's tremendously exciting. Could be Beterbiev. Could be Charlo at 168. And I think that's one of the reasons why Charlo's being so complimentary of Canelo. I don't think he's joined the Canelo fan club. I think he just realizes that Canelo has an ego just like he does. And if he starts, cussing Canelo out, Canelo might just say, you know what? You're disrespectful. I'm not going to give you an opportunity. Whereas if he's nice to Canelo, I guess he figures Canelo's more likely to give him a shot. And maybe we're seeing this. Maybe it's working. Maybe that's why Canelo came out and said, I'd rather face Charlo than fight Gennady for a third time. Because there has been some bad blood between Canelo and Golovkin after their second fight in particular. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Canelo Alvarez saying he would rather face Charlo first before a third fight with Gennady Golovkin. Let me know how you feel about it. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.